guys, welcome back to an all-new episode of the One Tree Hill Rewatch here on the Filmaholic channel. And today I'm talking about two episodes in the second half of Season 7, and that is 713 and 714. 713, mid-season premiere. The title is Weeks Go By Like Days. It originally aired January 18th, 2010. It was directed by Joe Davola and written by Karen Gist. Wow, it really, when I think about it, it's crazy how long One Tree Hill has been actually over. You know, they've was there the last day of filming, which was in November, I think November 16th, 2011. And then, you know, the first half of 2012 is when Season 9 aired, with the finale being in April. I think it was, I want to say April 4th or April. It was around there, is when the series finale aired. But that is crazy. I mean, it feels like it was a long time ago, but it doesn't feel like it was like that long ago. Especially when I look at Season 7, because that feels like it feels more recent than that when I think about it. Like the fact that the first half of Season 7 wasn't actually even filmed and came out in this decade. Like that was a different decade ago. It's crazy. But yeah, like Joe Davola, he ends up directing my favorite episode down the line. He's okay as a director. But yeah, the episode starts, you know, like I said, it's the mid-season premiere. We got a lot of stuff in the last episode, but this one it's about a month later now, which is also funny too, you know, and how they made it up in the last episode, how long this tour that Haley was going to be on was going to last, how that was going to affect Nathan and his joining the Bobcats and all this, or if he had played in Spain. But the tour was only like a month, right? Like, so when Season 7 starts, it's June 2013. You got to imagine that the mid-season finale, 7/12, was somewhere in July. So now I'm assuming that we're somewhere in August when we come back here. School hasn't started yet, but it's about, well, that's another thing. No, because that was another thing I brought up later. I was talking to Sarah about with Miss Lauren, when she comes in. I was like, why is she not at work? You know, like this is the middle of the week, but then Jamie's not either. So I guess you have to imagine that their school doesn't start until, I don't know, sometime in October. Which I mean, we still haven't really seen him go back to school in Season 8, where I'm actually at right now. I gotta catch up on these videos. So that'll be interesting to talk about it and look at. But, yeah, so it's still summertime. It's about a month later. Tour's over. They all come home, and they're going to have Haley's final show on the tour here in Tree Hill at the River Court. You know, Jamie been annoying his friends, keeps bragging about it. Nathan ends up having to invite them to the concert at the end to try to be like, hey, my son's not a jerk. And then Jamie realizes that at the end. That's one of the little things you get. Quinn, you know, you further still with Quinn and Clay's relationship, which I like their relationship. Like I said, I think they could have done a lot more with Quinn's character, because she doesn't have a whole lot going on. Like in this episode, I wrote down that she gets, you know, her divorce is finalized with David, and maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it was she just got divorce papers, but I think it's that her divorce is finalized in this episode from David. It's hard. I wish that I could just film these right after I get done watching the episode, but then we get so into like binging these episodes that I get so far ahead. But I'm pretty sure that she gets the divorce from David in this episode, which doesn't make sense in terms of North Carolina. They've done this before in the show too with Dan and Deb, but the reason I more believe that is because in North Carolina you have to be separated for a year. At least that's the way it used to be, because when my parents got separated and divorced and everything, you have to be separated for a year and then you can get a divorce. So with the whole Dan and Deb thing, I'm sure they just lied about it, like just get it over with. Because of everything that happened in those first 4 seasons, I feel like that's reasonable to think. With the Quinn and David thing, I don't think they would have lied about it. I don't feel like David would be like, which, I don't know. I guess that's another thing too. We don't know what state they're from. I don't think it's never said in the show like what state they are originally from, and I don't think it actually is North Carolina. So maybe the state that they're from, you can get a divorce quicker. I just thought about that, which is another interesting thing. If you guys are watching, where do you think Quinn and David are from? Where do you think they live? Where do you think David is from? I don't really know if it ever says David is from Tree Hill. Quinn obviously is. And there's a couple things that they touch upon in the season 2 with that annoys me. Like, hey, he asked her to marry him there by the river or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know why you would do that. I don't know. Like, kind of, I think they probably lived in California, but there could have been somewhere else too. I know that they mentioned New York, but I don't think that's where they lived. Not that it matters, but that happens in this episode. Also, her and Clay are kind of awkward around Nathan. But then Nathan has a talk with Clay, and then that kind of solves that by the end of the episode. Little cute thing. But the main part of this episode is Brooke and Julian, right? Julian and Alex are back from, I guess they went to LA. They've been working on the film. And Brooke and Alexander, her new male clothing designer, have ran into each other at the airport. It was really awkward, and they have some scenes together in the episode, and it leads to this big fight between Brooke and Julian at the concert at the end of the episode, which is very good, really good performances from both Sophia Bush and Austin Nichols. It's, a very sad scene to watch, them fighting, especially if you're fans of those two characters like I am. But yeah, it's really sad, but it's really, really done well. And so they break up. Because at this point, Brooke and Julian aren't actually broken up. They are more of on a break. They are, because they didn't really, the mid-season finale, they didn't necessarily break up. They just said they need to spend time apart. And then this episode, which obviously has been time apart a month later, they haven't been in contact with each other. They don't know what's going on. And then everything, I guess, that's been festering in both their minds of both the situations come to a head in this episode, and they end up breaking up. But something else, I was talking to Sarah about. It's like, it doesn't affect me because I know how it goes, and I'm obviously glad. I think it's a good storyline to do. I'm not saying they shouldn't have done the storyline, but it's just that Austin Nichols was added on as a series regular in this season, that him and Brooke were going to end up together. That was the plan. Otherwise, I don't think they would have ever added him on as a regular, and they would have brought him on as a recurring guest star. And then two things happen at the end of the episode. One is Mouth returns, which I had forgotten how short of a time he was gone, that he was in LA. I thought he was in LA a little bit longer, but he shows up at the end of this episode, back to the apartment with Millicent. And then the big thing at the end of this episode is that Taylor shows up, which we haven't seen since season 2. Glad they brought her back. But she shows up and she's having some conversation with Nathan, and then at the end of the episode it's revealed too that she has a new boyfriend. She brought him in as David, so that's going to set up this chaos in the next episode. Let's go ahead and jump right into that, and that's 714 Family Affair, which that episode originally aired January 25th, 2010, was directed by Paul Johansson, Dan Scott, and written by my hero and David Strauss, once again, two of my favorite writers on the show. Usually their episodes are really good. Except for the one episode that we'll talk about in season 8, which I don't think it's their fault. I feel like it's something in the writer's room they came up with. But this whole episode is mainly about the Taylor-David thing, right? That's the whole family affair. Taylor bringing David, the fighting between the three sisters, which while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. We only ever meet Quinn and Taylor, right? And that is... If that's the only sisters, which I'm assuming that it is, there's no other sister hanging around somewhere, great. But it's mentioned how big of a household that Haley has in the high school years, which definitely means more than 2 siblings. And I'm pretty sure that it's mentioned that she has brothers. So yeah, Haley has brothers that we never meet. I'm assuming that when we get to 7:18 in that end scene with everybody, that her brothers are there. But we just don't ever meet them, which I think is odd. I understand why you didn't bring them in for this storyline in 8, because you wanted, we've already met Taylor, and Quinn was as a regular now, so we have a connection to all 3 of these. it makes more sense to focus emotionally on those than bring in, you know, two other brothers or whatever. But it just feels awkward that they wouldn't come back for this situation that was happening. I don't know. Or even have the mom like mention that she went to see them or something, and you know, maybe bring them in for an episode after the funeral that we end up having. Maybe have them come in just for one episode. I don't know. Like, it's just something that I would have touched upon, but it's also, you know, the situation with Dan's parents. They never bring them back again, and just random things like that kind of bother me. But Haley's the most, you know, bothered in this episode in terms of the Taylor and David thing. Quinn's upset, and she ends up getting in that fight at the pool, which is a good scene. But Haley's the most upset because, you know, Haley's the person who wants to try to like fix everything and wants everything, especially her house, to go smoothly and everything, and it's just not. They end up having a dinner at Neely's. Clay comes for support of Quinn. Once again, we get in that pool fight with Taylor, Haley, and Quinn, and the guys don't really know what to do. But then we have a really funny scene after that where the guys are sitting inside, but they're like keeping an eye on them like through the glass, and they're like, well, they're not fighting anymore. You know, they're talking. And talking's good. And this is David's last episode. David doesn't come. Well, that's not true. David's last episode for a while. We do see David again in season 9. Unfortunately, which I think is a stupid scene. That, once again, is a situation where it's like, I feel like they were friends of the people, so they brought him back, and that's fine, but it was two characters that, you know, I'm not going to speak for all of the fans, but for me, I couldn't care less about David or Lauren. Why you would bring them back again. I know it adds to Skills in his scene in season 9, which I do care about Skills' character, but I also think they could have gave Skills more to do in the last few seasons. And I know there might have been outside factors dealing with that in season 8 and maybe 9. But, you know, looking at characters, and that's something I've been thinking about now that we're approaching the end of the show, that I would have liked to see come back in season 9, including Jake, for at least an episode. I mean, obviously Lucas and Peyton more than what we get. You know, we don't get any Peyton. If you watch the show, you know she doesn't come back. So, you know, those 3, I would have brought. I think you could have brought Karen back again for another episode. I think the whole thing with Chase of him getting the bar, when we get to that point, we talk about it. I feel like if you brought Karen in for that, it could have been cool, which Karen had never met Chase. So, but it'd be a reason to bring Karen back, right? Yeah, but just like different characters like that would be more interesting to see. Grubbs, which, you know, he's in the season we're talking about, but we don't see him again after the season. Would have liked to see him come back. Yeah, but that's the stuff with going on at Haley's house, and then we go to the other stuff in the episode. So we got the stuff with the movie going on, right? So they've hired this director to make this film, which this is this kind of stuff that's like, it doesn't make sense. What are we doing here? So the director they end up choosing to direct Julian and Alex's film is the director that we saw in season 6 that wanted to do Lucas's movie. He was the director who completely ignored the story, Lucas's vision and everything, and he wanted to have Lucas live in a trailer park, or a junkyard, I think, and have a drive-by shooting. Everything was ridiculous, which I don't even know why you would have picked him to even consider Lucas's movie back then. It goes back to, I guess it's supposed to poke fun at studio, you know, heads and its big-time producers like Julian's dad would be, in the sense of not paying attention to the actual material. I guess that's what they're poking at, maybe. But, you know, Julian and Alex are the core of this film. I know Paul is producing it and everything as well, and I'm sure Paul picked this director out, especially since he wanted him for that other film as well. But Julian is a producer as well. Alex is a screenwriter on the film, and they ended up with this lousy director. It doesn't make much sense to me, and he just doesn't seem like the type that you would ever choose to direct this film. He's out of touch, definitely not. So, anyways, he's in the episode. He ends up sexually harassing Alex, and he keeps bothering her. I think he sexually harassed her, does he not? Let me think. Yes, he does, because he keeps wanting to. He's trying to sleep with her in the episode, and she says that she turned him down, and then he started getting really upset with her, and then he starts with the scars. And he grabs her by the arm, and tells her to cut deeper next time, which is hard. It's just awful, and luckily Julian comes in and punches him out and knocks him out. He says, when he wakes up, tell him he's fired. Which I'm glad he did that and everything, but I just in general, I don't know why that director was ever hired for that fictional film in the show. And then Brooke agrees to do the film's close if Julian agrees to direct, because Julian's always wanted to direct, and this is the perfect opportunity for him. And then Julian goes and talks to Paul, and Paul, now that him and Julian are on better terms, he says, you were at the top of the list. So now Julian is directing the film. And that's this episode. Also, I wrote down, we have the stuff in the episode too with Mouth and Lauren cleaning the apartment from the mess that Millicent's made. Kind of some filler scenes. All of this stuff with Mouth and Lauren is supposed to building up because we're leading to this eventual love triangle between Mouth, Lauren, and Skills by the end of the season, which is just not very good, to be honest. And they end up working past it we'll talk about it when we get there, but they end up working past it. But then Skills isn't in much of season 8, so we really don't get to see them work past it and then build on their friendship in the future, because we don't see him and we don't see him in season 8. But that's the 2 episodes I'm talking about today. I will see you guys next time.